Almost everyone assumes that if your vehicle doesn't have an MOT, you simply can't drive it. But that's only half the story. There are a few very specific situations where you can legally drive without an MOT. If you're living on the road or bringing an old vehicle back into use, understanding those rules could save you a lot of trouble. Today we're going to look at MOT exemptions, vehicle tax, boat safety certificates, and one of the most misunderstood rules in the UK, road law, driving to a pre-booked MOT. Later we'll also look at the common mistakes that turn a legal journey into an offence. Living on the road, waterways or off-grid in the UK, Dickie Dread. And this is part 35 in the video series, and we're on chapter 4, driving laws and navigation laws. So MOT, tax, and what has actually changed. Some vehicles are exempt from MOT testing, but the exemptions are narrower than people often assume. Historic vehicles, those over 40 years old, are exempt from MOT testing provided they have not been substantially modified in the last 30 years. However, this is often misunderstood. The exemption is from testing, not from roadworthiness. It remains illegal to drive an unsafe vehicle. Brakes, lights, tyres and structure must still meet legal needs. And this is not in the book, but the reason they give you the exemption is not because they're being kind. It's simply that they can't find the people to do the testing of such old vehicles. So anyway, back to the book. So vehicle tax operates on a similar principle. Historic vehicles are exempt once they reach 40 years of age, provided they are not used commercially. Electric vehicles, EVs, are no longer exempt. As of April 2025, EVs are subject to vehicle tax in the same way as other vehicles. The earlier exemption has ended, and any assumption that EVs remain tax-free is now outdated. Vehicles used by or for disabled people may still qualify for tax exemptions, but these require specific eligibility and documentation through the DVLA. Boat safety and inspection. The closest equivalent to an MOT for inland boats is the Boat Safety Scheme, the BSS certificate. This covers fuel systems, gas installations, ventilation and fire safety. It does not guarantee seaworthiness or full structural integrity, but it is required for licensing on most inland waterways. As with MOT exemptions, there are edge cases, for example, some non-powered craft, but most livable boats will require certification. And just like vehicles, exemption from testing does not remove the requirement to be safe. So driving to an MOT, what you can and can't get away with. There is one situation where you are legally allowed to drive a vehicle that does not have a valid MOT, and that is to a pre-booked MOT test. Under UK law, you can drive a vehicle to a test centre without an MOT, provided the following conditions are met. The MOT test must be booked in advance. The journey must be direct, no detours, no errands. The vehicle must still be roadworthy, and the vehicle must be insured. That last point catches people out. No MOT does not mean no insurance. If you are not insured, you are committing a separate offence regardless of the MOT situation. You're also allowed to drive a vehicle to or from a place of repair if it has failed an MOT, again, provided it is still roadworthy and insured. If it has failed on something serious, brakes, steering and tyres, and you drive it anyway, you are back in illegal territory. There's also a common misunderstanding around vehicle tax. In practice, you can drive to a pre-booked MOT without tax because tax requires a valid MOT. But again, this only applies to that specific journey. You cannot use it as a general excuse to run an untaxed vehicle. For those living on land or bringing vehicles back into use after long periods off-road, this becomes particularly relevant. A van that has been sitting in a field for a year cannot just be driven to see if it still works, but it can be driven legally to a booked MOT if it is safe enough to make the journey. And that is the key point the law quietly rests on, roadworthiness. Even without an MOT, the vehicle must still meet basic safety standards. Bald tyres, failed brakes or broken lights will land you in trouble regardless of where you say you are going. As with much of this chapter, there is a gap between what people do and what the law allows. Plenty of folk chance it. Some get away with it. But if you are relying on the driving to an MOT rule, you need to do it properly, booked, insured and direct, or it stops being a loophole and becomes just another offence. So paperwork matters, but safety matters more. Whether you're exempt from an MOT, heading to a pre-booked test or renewing a boat licence, the law consistently comes back to one principle: the vehicle or boat must still be safe to use. If you're trying to live differently, this isn't just about MOTs. It's about understanding how the system actually works before discovering it the hard way. In the next video, we'll look at towing, something that is far more relevant than most people think. Whether you're pulling a caravan, trailer, horse box or equipment for an off-grid lifestyle, the rules have changed considerably. Many drivers don't realise they're now legally allowed or required, or what they're now legally allowed or required to do. So we'll be on Chapter 4 still, driving and navigation laws, and we'll cover towing, more relevant than most people think.